The content of this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the guidance of your healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding your mental or physical health. The views expressed are those of the host and guests and do not replace personalized care from a licensed professional.
Welcome to Mindful Moments with Pedro Morante, a space where a nurse practitioner and educator shares real talk on mental wellness, mindfulness, and navigating life in and out of healthcare. Let's take a moment to breathe, reflect, and grow together.
All right, welcome to Mindful Moments with Pedro Morante. And hello, everyone. This podcast is wherein we go beyond the clinical charts and into the human stories behind healthcare. I'm your host, Pedro Morante, and today's episode is a powerful one. Because right now, across hospitals everywhere, nurses are carrying more than ever before. Rising patient loads, staffing shortages, emotional exhaustion, and a system that often demands everything while leaving very little room to recover. And yet, even in the middle of all of that, something powerful is happening. A new generation of nurses is rising. They are bold, vocal, innovative, and unafraid to challenge how things have always been done. And as we close out National Nurses Month, it feels extra special and important to spotlight those voices, to reflect on the reality of nursing today, the challenges that remain, and the people who are actively shaping where this profession is going next. Our guest today is one of those voices. Soiland is an emergency nurse, travel nurse, educator, and healthcare advocate. Through her platform, she shares real-world insights from the bedside, from clinical updates to honest, unfiltered conversations about what nursing truly looks like behind the scenes. But beyond the content, her mission is clear: to help nurses become confident, skilled bedside clinicians while bringing back something many feel has been lost in healthcare: the joy, the purpose, and the pride in this profession. She represents a generation of nurses who love the work but are also brave enough to ask the hard questions. How can we do this better? Today, we're diving into conversations where many nurses are thinking about but don't always say out loud: bullying and culture in nursing, burnout and survival in high-pressure environments, and then the new generation of nurses reshaping the healthcare and what the future of this profession really looks like from the front lines. Let's all welcome the one and only, without further ado, Amber in the house. Woo-hoo! One of the best influencers that I met at LA Vibe this year. So thank you so much, Amber, for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. How's your day so far? Is it a busy day or?
Not really too busy. No, just I usually just have Zoom after email, and that's pretty much what I've been doing all day.
Great. And it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm humbled and honored. Now, let's get to business. Your work sits at the intersection of emergency nursing, travel nursing, education, and you built a platform helping nurses grow into stronger and more confident bedside clinicians. So, before we dive deeper into these roles, take us back. What first drew you into emergency nursing?
Well, I was a postpartum nurse for several years, and then I just kind of got bored, and I was like, I need to spice things up a bit. So it was suggested to me, go to the emergency department. So same hospital, transferred departments, and it was love at first sight. I loved helping people. I loved the organized chaos, and I at first loved the culture as well. But then there were some ups and downs too.
And it takes a lot of personality, right, to be in emergency nursing, and not everybody can do emergency nursing because of the beautiful chaos that is accustomed to it, right?
Yes. I mean, it's definitely, you know, high adrenaline, high stakes environment, quick decisions. But I think at the same time, you have to have the type of personality where you're ready to just switch on and off. So that's definitely where I thrived in there for sure.
Yes, and a lot of nurses are wanting to enter emergency nursing, but kind of like had a setback or have like imposter syndrome if they can do it, because they know that, oh my God, really need to be on my toes, and I really need to make sure that I'm good at what I do, because emergency nursing, you get different cases every time, and we're watching this different television shows, Pit, Grey's Anatomy, and everything that falls into it. But there's always a perfect personality for emergency nursing. Am I correct?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I have to be honest, I do not watch too many medical shows
Uh-huh.
on TV because I'm that one that's just like, oh, this is ridiculous. Like I heard Grey's Anatomy, the doctor, four doctors ambulating a patient around. So I don't watch The Pit either. I hear great things about it, but I am guilty of not being a frequenter of those. But that doesn't, the real world and TV world are definitely miles apart.
Yeah, so there's like expectation versus reality, and I know that
Yeah.
as an emergency nurse, you guys are pretty much busy all around the clock. That there's so much waiting in the triage room, and patients also are back to back, right? After you see your
Always.
patient, there's patient after patient after patient. So, what will be your best advice for those who are new grad that are wanting to enter emergency nursing and they wanted to try it?
So I would say make sure, and not everybody, has access to this, but I would say make sure you're at a hospital that supports you, because there are a lot of hospitals out there that don't have education programs and don't have transition and practice programs. And I think that is where, I mean, just like nursing school, when you go to clinicals, you need to have that hands on and be prepared and be ready. So the best advice that I can give is make sure you have such a good support system so that you're not just thrown into the barracks and just left to, learn and fend for yourself, because you really should have that support system and that kind of like gentle guiding of like, we see this every single day, or, this, like, we hardly ever see this. Like, it's great that you get to experience this. So definitely having a great support system. I mean, it would be fantastic if all hospitals across the US had transition and practice programs or really supportive educational programs. I tried really hard to get like a good educational program going at my hospital, but they were like, budget, we don't need that.
Those are great tips: education, preparation, mindset. I love it. And now, at what point did you realize you didn't just want to practice nursing, but you also stepped out of your comfort zone and started your sharing your experiences and educating others online? How is that experience?
So I love it far more. I think everybody who goes into nursing has, like, they want, that bedside experience, and they want to put IVs in and push medication, and then when you step away from the bedside, it's a whole different experience. But I was so drawn to advocacy because I feel like the hospital that I was at, I just had such a poor experience. And I think most of it was kind of, personality clashes and whatnot, and a lot of bullying. So that's really pushed me into advocacy. And so I think I'm having a better time now, because I think that that's kind of where I always wanted to be. What kind of pushed me there was actually hearing someone say, to me out loud, do you want to, if you want to really fit in there, you have to be like them. You have to be like the bullies, and that was just a turning point for me in my life. I was like, I will never be like them. I will never be like that. If somebody asked me for help or support, I'd be the first one to like, yeah, let's do it. Let's learn. Let's look this up. So I really thought to myself, I think I could be more useful somewhere else than being at the bedside. And so that's where advocacy was born.
And for every advocacy, there's always a why and a passion for it. And I can feel that what really stands out about your content is that it doesn't just focus on surviving nursing. It actually brings energy, excitement, and also even joy back into the profession. And in a time where burnout dominates so many conversations, that feels incredibly refreshing. How are you able to do that, and what helps you reconnect with your purpose on the hardest days?
So what I really think about social media and why I really wanted to kind of get started, because a lot of the nurse influencers that are out there, I mean, they're all split across the board for sure, but I think a lot of them that are out there are comedians, and and they really like resonate with people because they get on Instagram, and nurses just kind of want to mentally check out after their shift. And so to see hilarious like Nurse Stank, he's so funny, and it just makes you mentally clock out. um I am not a comedian at all, so that I could not get on that platform like that. So um my platform, I want to just let nurses know that they still have a place no matter what, that you don't have to be that nurses eat their young to be successful, and you don't have to be scared to ask questions, because there is always space for that, and you should never be done learning. So I try to just bring more of the joy side of nursing, rather than the comedy side, which is kind of the more popular side on social media.
I agree with you. As they said, laughter is the best medicine. But in our aspects, we talk about something that is real, something that is not spoken about. And that the phrase nurses eat their young has been around for decades. And from your experience working across different hospitals and as a travel nurse, how present is that culture today?
So I I hope that it's changing, and I see somewhat that it's changing, but I think it's also kind of, I mean, it's absolutely still there, and it kind of shows up in ways like bullying, like ignoring your nurse, a fellow peer, or not offering help, that kind of thing, where if you call on the radio like, hey, I need a second sign off in here on the Pyxis, and then nobody responds, nobody comes. I mean, that's a form of nurses eating their young, like, oh, they'll figure it out, someone else will help. That I still see a lot, and I get a lot of messages about, like, hey, I'm getting so burnt out on this, like, how do I handle it? And I didn't have a safe place to go, because you never know who in your department is friends with who and what. And that's kind of where my app Safe Staff was born, so that you can have a documentation system for these things, so that you can remember these things, know when they happen, in case something kind of comes up later, like you have the evidence to support it.
I agree with you, and still an ongoing issues that we need to resolve that nurses eat their young. We need to mentor the next generation of nurses because
Yeah.
it's gonna be a switch power. And if there's power struggle on the bedside, what happens is that the patients will suffer, and we're not meeting the standards of what are expected for us as professional nurses.
Yeah.
And what does bullying actually looks like on the floor, especially the subtle behaviors that people may not immediately recognize as bullying, like for example, a nurse coming into the shift And some nurses could be like what, bullying each other, either not by behaviors, or they can spill coffee on their uniforms, and they will just unapologetically say, I'm sorry, it spilled on you. Right? There are issues wherein some nurses filed an harassment against their coworkers because they felt like they were being bullied as new grad nurses, especially by the season ones.
So I would say nursing and bullying, I mean, it can look like anything. It can look like something as obvious as that, or it can look like something like you always get the poor assignments, or you always get the worst patients, or, you always get put in the back, or like I said, you never get the help that you ask for. Nurse bullying is not just this obvious, like, to your face, that we kind of think of in grade school,
Mm.
elementary school, fighting in the corner. I mean, it can look like constant retaliation for an event, constantly berating someone, and or giving report, and then always finding issues where there really are none. I mean, bullying in nursing is so varied right now, and I have sensed such a shift in nursing from, I mean, even just 10 years ago, 20 years ago. I remember when I wanted to be a nurse, and like looking at all these nurses, and like how just they were heroes. They were like, this is amazing to do this. And nowadays I think it's kind of become this trend almost. And I think a lot of people get into it for the wrong reason, which is why we have a lot of bullies. I think a lot of nurses get into it because it's a great career, and
Mhm.
I'll always have overtime, I'll always have a job, I can pick up a shift, I can travel. But, and I know this is a hot debate because it is just a career, but you have to have empathy and compassion to be a nurse. You have to have a certain something inside you to be able to provide compassionate and dignified care to people. And so, while I would love to say, nursing is for everyone, it's really not. It is a career, but at the same time, like, you just have to have a servant's heart. You have to have something. You have to have care and compassion in you somewhere to take care of somebody.
Think I resonate with you, having that empathy and having that skills, attitudes, knowledge of becoming a nurse as a full package. It's a lot of work and a lot of like physical, emotional constraints
Yeah.
with it if you are not able to put a barrier or therapeutic barrier for yourself between your profession. And I have read also that people that are bullies have experienced bullying or have underlying struggles with their own mental health. And that could be either that they have experienced bullying themselves or um, has been struggling with anxiety, depression, and that's their outlet of expressing their anger or innate feelings in such a way that it's in a negative connotation. So we really
Yeah.
need to make sure we look at the reason behind it and make sure to address it as early as now, because people could be dying silently, or they're in silence and they're suffering inside and they're not stepping out there because they think that speaking up means they're going to get more in trouble, and they end up not reporting it. So we really need to make sure that support is there, and we need to make sure that their voices are heard too.
Yeah, that's an amazing point to make, because I mean, there are very vast differences. Like, I will tell you, one charge nurse that I worked with, she was that, very obvious, like, I have issues, and she was very obviously a bully, and vocal about it. And you could tell that there were underlying issues. But then there's someone like me who I was struggling mentally because of where I was working at, but I wasn't vocal about it. I was severely depressed at the kind of end of my term there at that hospital. And I did not share with anybody how depressed I was. And I suffered in silence and, just kind of bottled it up because I was afraid of retaliation. I was afraid things would get worse if people knew, you don't, especially as an ER nurse, you don't want people to know that you're struggling mentally. Like you have to be there and be the one saving them. So but it's that airplane, like you got to put on your mask first before you can save anybody else, So yeah, there's definitely, I was that suffer in silence type for sure.
Right. And also it's a cycle sometimes, right? They got bullied and now they end up being the bullies, right?
Yeah.
And then it's a cycle that we need to break and something that we need to make sure to advocate for. For nurses currently working in toxic environments, what coping strategies or support system have you seen that actually help them survive and grow through it?
So I would say calling people out. So and that does not necessarily mean like face to face right there, hey, like I'm giving report and you're being mean to me, whatever, like, hey, you're bullying me. What I mean by calling people out is recognizing patterns. So I'll go back to my app Safe Staff. We have a button on there for personal issues in your department, which is not part of like the public information that we have for the data. And that could be like always hitting that button, time stamping it when you see that you're being treated that way. Like, oh, I was put in the back again, or oh, I asked for this assignment and was clearly given a different assignment or whatever, and always have evidence of that so that when the time comes and you need it, you have it. Because I know for me in my department, when I went to kind of like talk to my manager about this stuff, I had, well, what were the dates? What were the incidents? What were this? What were that? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I can remember some of these stories, but I don't have the exact dates for you, and having evidence to call them out and to be able to bring to the table the evidence of like, well, these are the occasions that I really felt like this, and this is how often this happened. So I would really say like keep, and it's hard because you already have to chart so much as a nurse, and you already have to like do so much documentation. So like for me to say add more, I know is hard, but you have to protect your license and your mental health. And for that comes doing your own work, doing what you need to do for yourself. So I say add a little bit of that work and like keep track of things, keep your data.
And it's important to make sure to have those boundaries, those healthy boundaries, saying
Mhm.
no and making sure that you prioritize your mental health.
Oh, for
Because
sure.
as nurses, if you don't take care of it, how can you deliver a good care to your patients if you yourself
Yeah.
needed some attention and care?
Yeah. And I saw that pattern firsthand. I mean, some of the people that I worked with that clearly had bullying issues, I feel like we're just so mean to patients. I mean, that is honestly what threw me over the edge was these nurses and how mean they were to patients, like um, unhoused patients coming in, or um, the frequent flyers, and the just how irritated they would be with having to take care of them again, and the whole I'm here for a turkey sandwich thing. And it's do do those people want to be there? Do those people want to be treated like that? I heard nurses all the time saying like, oh, this patient smells so bad, I don't want to take care of him. I'm like, you're an ER nurse. Like it's not all chest compressions and intubating all the time. Like it is there's a lot, probably half of it is mental health of the community. And so you have to be ready for all that too. It's not just all adrenaline junkie. I mean, the adrenaline is so little amount of time in the ER. And I wasn't at a trauma facility, so maybe it's you could bump it up a little bit at different facilities, but I know for our ER it's like it's those far and few between. And it's the 99% of the time where you're taking care of, the patients that are going to go upstairs that are there, to get some fluid off them for congestive heart failure. And you got to take care of them until that bed is ready upstairs. So everybody needs care.
Yeah, that's a wide that's an eye opener for us. And also thank you for giving us an idea of what's going on in the ER, because it's really like the chaos around, and a beautiful chaos, and it's a lot to take in if you're not used to it. Like if you're that type of personality that doesn't like chaos, you like predictable outcomes, then it could
Then
be a
go to the
lot, right?
ICU.
Yeah. So for nurses currently working in toxic environments too, right? There's a lot of discussion about younger nurses or the Gen Zs entering the workforce, but not always enough understanding. What strengths are you seeing in the new generation of nurses that may not have been very visible before?
So I can see a difference of this Gen Z that's coming in. The generation that's coming in is more vocal, and I think the millennial generation kind of was that kind of quiet, like kind of passive, but this new generation that's coming in is they are not afraid to be like, I'm not doing that. Don't put that on me. Millennials and the former, they were kind of that like, oh, I'll just deal with it. I'll just take it. And I love that this new generation coming up. I have 5 kids, and I can see it in them too. And they are the like, hey, I'm healing here. Like, don't put that on me. Like, I'm working on myself. And so I think that's having that in nursing, seeing that new generation being able to stand up for themselves. I think that's going to be hopefully a big positive change for nursing.
And I can definitely see that too, like in a lot of like reports also. Gen Zs are more vocal and they have the capability to say no. Well, I'm millennial. Well, I'm looking at being more selective with saying no. Sometimes I feel guilty when I say no, but I can see that the Gen Zs are more open up, more vocal, and not a sense of entitlement, but they know what they want and they stand up for it, which I think it's good criteria to um but as long as there's also humility, accustomed to it, and the way they communicate, I think it's never going to be a problem. What's going to be the problem here is if there's a sense of entitlement and also there's no humility in it, then that's where in both generations or baby boomers, could be the Gen X, Gen Zs, are clashing out because of that. So I think it's all about communication and good collaboration between this generation. Now,
Yeah.
on social media, how are these platforms like TikTok, Instagram, and LinkedIn change the way that nurses connect, learn, and speak openly about mental health, burnout, and the realities of the job?
Well, I I laugh because there's um there's such a disconnect between what's real and what's not, and what influencers are doing and what's not. And um I don't want to speak ill of any of the influencers that are out there, because I know that sometimes they're doing great things. But at the same time, I think more can be done. I wish that more of the influencers that are out there that have a voice were using it, because things are so hard right now. There are so many hospitals constantly on strike. I mean, the state of Indiana doesn't even allow nurse unions to be formed. I mean, we still have so much work to do. And unfortunately, I see a lot of these influencers. I've tried to connect with a fair few of them, like, hey, can we, partner up and get some advocacy done? Like, your platform, is great for comedy, but like, let's do a PSA, let's do a public service announcement together. And Unfortunately, it's always no. So I think that having social media, um, and having a voice, I think we could do a better job. I know recently Nurse Blake mentioned that there is no national registry for reporting workplace violence for nurses or reporting unsafe working conditions, but I actually have that platform. I have a national database that I've started for, that's the Safe Staff app, for documenting unsafe working conditions and making hospitals more transparent. The data becomes de-identified, it becomes encrypted, and people can go on and view and see what's going on inside hospitals in real time, and see when there's short staffing, and see when there was a violent event against a nurse. And I, back to how this relates to social media, I countered Nurse Blake and I said, hey, no, I have that database. Like, if you really think that's a good idea, and we should have a database, and you wish you could see the database, like, hey, right here. Ultimately, he was tagged hundreds of times in my response. The video was viewed 15,000 times and shared several hundred times, and not a single response from him. So I'm almost like, are these influencers that we are out there making famous, are they the right ones? Are they actually going to be doing really good things? And I just want people to really take a good hard look, because I know that a lot of them will defend their favorite influencer to the death, and I have no issues with any of these influencers, but I just want to make sure that people are making sure that these influencers that have voices are actually making great changes out there, because like I said, we still have so much work to do in nursing, and we still have so many unions to be formed, and that's not what people want to see when they go on social media. They want to see those influencers relating to them and making these funny videos of what it's like to work in what department, and they don't want to go on and hear more complaints from someone like me, like, oh, we gotta get on the state of Indiana here. But unfortunately, it has to be done. We have, and social media is the easiest way to leverage all of that. And so that, I mean, that I don't, like I said, I don't want to speak ill of any of the influencers, because it's not anything that they're doing. It's more so what they're not doing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense, and it's eye opener also for us and the listeners out here, that we really need to make sure that some problems are resolved and not just putting at the back end, that we have serious cases of violence on the bedside, short staffing, and a lot of nurses getting hurt, and we don't talk about it. We're just okay. They got hurt, and so
Like, yeah,
but
like we want
it's
to
out.
mentally check out,
Yeah.
and
And
yeah.
how are they doing? How are they how are we being addressed on that reason? And these are serious issues which I think we really need to lobby out there, and we can talk to a higher state, like lobbying. If there's a lobby day for it, I think coalitions and also unions should be aware of it and probably tap those people so you can really reach them out. But it will be good if there's major influencers out there, not only addressing for entertainment only, but also at the same time there should be like a great cause surrounding our profession, because it,
Yeah, and
yeah.
that's
Mhm.
absolutely what I'm out there
Yeah.
trying to do.
Mhm.
I am, I mean, grassroots effort. I have no investors behind me in any of this advocacy that I'm doing. This is all just me trying to get out there and trying to help collect data so that we can get it to the right place. I mean, part of my idea with my app was that I'm hopeful that I can aggregate the data and get it to either union leaders so that they can see the patterns, because you can't fix an issue unless you recognize a pattern, right? So I'm hoping to also take it to kind of organize it also state by state and take it to State Department of Health and say, like, listen, this is what's going on inside your hospitals. I mean, we had one case on Safe Staff where a nurse, they were supposed to have, I believe, 9 nurses for their shift, and 6 called out. And they only had 3 nurses for their entire shift. And so that was going to cause all of them to be severely out of ratio. And it's things like that the hospital is not required to make public information. And it's also things like that. Like, you would want to know about that before going to work at that hospital, right? That, like, we're constantly missing our breaks here at this hospital. 40% of our nurses are missing our breaks at this hospital. That's what Safe Staff does, is it takes that data that these nurses, these healthcare frontline staff are reporting, and it turns it into the patterns. It recognizes the patterns, and it breaks it down for us. And I want to be able to give that to the union leaders, the State Department of Health, and say, listen, this is what's happening. You guys need to open your eyes, and we really need to fix this issue.
I agree with you. Psychological safety is very important right now so that we can avoid burnout. And a lot of nurses are trying to
Yes.
quit their job because of those issues that are unresolved. So if there's no change, then who will do it? If there's nobody advocating for our profession, who will
Yeah.
advocate for us? It's all us that has a voice, and we have to use it in a meaningful way.
I'm working on it.
Yes. Now you're juggling so many roles. You are a nurse, you are a mom, you are a student, and among many other things. How are you managing all those roles all together? And what tips can you impart to your fellow nurses on the same boat as you right now?
So I'm lucky in the fact that I have an extremely supportive husband who supports me to a fault at all times. Um, and that, I mean, that's my secret for sure, is him. Also, my 5 kids are absolutely the utmost amazing people you will ever meet. They are also so supportive of me and helpful. And that is the secret to my sauce for sure, is my supportive family, my mom, my sister, my dad. Like, I have so many people around me who help me at the drop of a hat, and that's amazing. At the same time, I'm a huge advocate of mental health, and I am very vocal. The last podcast I was on, we were talking about medications. I'm very vocal that I take antidepressants. Like I said, I was very depressed working at the end of my term in that hospital, and you got to do what you got to do to protect your mental health, because you are the priority. And mental health, I mean, we could get started on a whole nother debate of mental health in the United States, which is far lacking for sure. And a lot of ERs are picking up the slack on that, and I think that that's a major factor for burnout for nurses too, for sure, for ER nurses. That's a whole nother debate though.
Thank you for your honest and very raw response on that one. I think relatability and your authenticity really resonates with our audience right now. We want to make sure that we have to put it as a priority, because a lot of nurses, they don't pay attention to it, and guess what, they end up not doing a great job at their work because their
Right.
mental health is not in alignment or not at their baseline, and they're not able to care for their patients. They get cranky, can get mad, angry, and some personality issues going on there. So we really need to make sure we treat ourselves, do self-care, so that we can give a lot more for our patients and something
Absolutely.
that they deserve. Okay. Now, from your frontline perspective, what trends in the US healthcare is most concerning right now?
Oh my gosh, where do I start? Every aspect of healthcare in the United States is on the fritz. I woo,
Mhm.
um I think, I mean, to name a few, I think part part of an issue where we could start is simply, I mean, mental health. I would say let's start with mental health. I would say for for everyone and all, it's recognizing mental health, it's being honest about it, it's not being ashamed that to admit that you are depressed or you are addicted to something and you need to seek help. I think if we could start there, I think with health insurance, also that's a huge issue that we have. Nurses are still paid, um, are billed as like bedside, or I'm sorry, not like physicians are billed bedside, right? So physicians will go and they'll be like, well, I was with this patient for, 65 minutes and 45 minutes of it was critical care. And that's how they bill, right? Nurses, when insurance is billed for nurses, they are billed as part of equipment, right? So just like the cost of using a blanket or using medication, like nurses are just kind of built into that. I think that is also something that we could discuss in healthcare that could really change things. But that's also a slippery slope. But mental health and the way that United States health insurance are the two huge things that absolutely need to be overhauled. I mean, we can't keep taking away health. We can't keep taking away health insurances. We can't keep making it more expensive. The regulation on drugs and prescription drugs specifically, and how expensive they're allowed to be. I mean, just the process. It's corporation built. I believe, don't quote me 100% on this statistic, but I believe there's something like 5,500 hospitals in the United States, and those 5,500 hospitals are owned by like 50 corporations, and so it's really just a net of money making. And the Mayo Clinic, I just heard the Mayo Clinic, oh, I can't even remember the statistic now, but he made some absolutely astronomical amount of money, the CEO of the Mayo Clinic. It's absolutely insane how the American healthcare system is set up right now.
Thank you for your perspective, and I think we value the good understanding of that because United States should be at the top level of the healthcare because we belong to one of the strongest country, right? But I think we have a lot of work to do, right? Attending this global healthcare leadership program also in Harvard University, it was like eye opening, and the issues that we need to address in healthcare policies in comparison with other countries. So we don't want to fall behind, right, from other major countries. But I think there's a lot of work to do. And I think this podcast will be an initial step for both of us and probably advocate it for more and talk about it for more because we're trying to shy around it, and not to mention the issues are being not addressed. So there's no change until now. Now, Amber, there are nurses listening right now who feel very exhausted, overwhelmed, or unsure if they can keep going in this profession. What would you say to the nurse who still wants to become an excellent bedside clinician, but is really struggling to protect their mental health in this process?
I would say look at where you're at and look at what you're doing and see what changes you can make. And that is something as specific as, even if you have to step away for a little bit, step away from even your department. I know I live in an area where, I mean, I have 3 hospitals within a 10-mile radius. But I know a lot of people don't have that. They have, one critical care access hospital in their area, and that's, the only place they get to work. That's not exactly true too. Hopefully there's medical offices, long-term care facilities. If you have to step away temporarily to protect your mental health, that's not a form of failure. That is a form of self-care. And I know it seems like we all want to be like this acute care, I want to make it to the ER, the ICU, I want um not not getting there is not a form of failure, and every role a nurse takes is contributing, and even if that's a, at a phone call telephone call center, or whatever. I would say if you are truly struggling with burnout right now, it is going to be so hard to get better unless you change what is causing your burnout. So you really need to take a step back and look and see. For me, I wanted nothing more than to continue in the emergency department, and I suffered for so long because I'm like, well, this is a dream job, like a nurse in the Bay Area in the emergency department. I mean, that's a dream job, but it was destroying my mental health, and I had to step away, and I'm not shy about that, and it was not the wrong decision. I do miss being a bedside emergency nurse, but I love advocating and trying to make positive changes. So I'm content with where I'm at right now.
Thank you for thinking outside the box and following your passion, because not everybody wants to step out of their comfort zone. And strongly agree, you're working in the ER in North Bay, and I know you guys are one of the top paid specialty in emergency nursing. And that could be the dream job, but always remember that if it doesn't fit your mental health, then if you're struggling with it, then it may be something that we need to address, or something that is not appropriate. Try to speak up and try to make sure to heed the call for your mental health, because it's very important. And make, if you want to make it as a priority, like a lot of like CEOs or executive leaders, they're prioritizing their mental health so that they can do a better job in establishing their business, and they're more successful at it. So if you look at it, they're putting it as a priority so that they can do a better job in what they do, because
Yeah,
if they have a
you're not
bad mental health, everything's gonna fall apart. And that's something that we always need to make a priority, and not just delaying it, because it creates a drastic impact with how we perform.
Yeah, for sure.
And a lot of like high performing athletes, and a lot of like healthcare workers right now, they're trying to not make it a priority, and they end up not doing a great job at it. Now,
Yeah.
Amber, tell us what you do. So for those who are tuning in to this podcast, tell us about your app once again. And also, where can they follow you in your social media, and what your platforms are? And you're very active as a med influencer. And I think I'll be seeing you also in the Health Las Vegas on November. So tell us about what you're doing, and a final message to all the listeners out here.
Perfect. Yeah. So I'm so excited about health. It'll actually be my first year going to it. I hear it's just an absolute blast. I'm so excited. I will be going as a medfluencer, which is a great positive company. Um, I frequent expos for sure, because that's where you make great connections. I actually will be going to a LinkedIn dinner in Chicago this weekend, so I'm really excited about that too. Get to meet some big execs there. But you can follow me. I'm mostly on Instagram. Honestly, that's where I'm at the most, and that's Rapid CPR Girl. And that's where I am on TikTok also. But most importantly, I'm also on LinkedIn as Amber Soiland, first and last name. Most importantly, I want to talk about my app, because I truly think that it can bring some great changes. It's called Safe Staff, and it's available on Apple and the Google Play Store. And essentially, first and foremost, it's a documentation system for yourself. So it's not just for nurses, it's for any hospital frontline staff. And basically, it's one tap documentation. So we have all these buttons like missed meal, violence event, a sentinel event, short staffing, floated to a different unit. We have all these different buttons, and you can just tap it while you're on shift. Just easy. Pull out your phone, Face ID, tap, timestamp it, save it for later. You can add notes later. You can put notes in it then. And you can have your own documentation for when you need it. I think a lot of times people don't realize how often they are working in unsafe conditions. Just even a few minutes of being short staffed, or, the nurse is going to be 2 hours late or whatever, you're picking up the slack. I think when you actually see that data aggregated and then you are face to face with it, you will really realize how poor hospitals are treating staff right now. So that's why I created it. So you, first and foremost, you have your documentation system. You have that. You have your evidence for when you need it. If you ever need to, go legal and sue, go to the manager and say, here, printed out PDF, send it to HR, whatever. And secondly, what the app is it is a data analysis database, right? So we take all of that data that the nurses are entering, we encrypt it, we de-identify it, so there is no connection to who entered the information. And then we pull the analytics on it. And so we can see just how many nurses and at what hospital are working short staff or have missed their meals. And you can see what it's like in that hospital. And this is going to create accountability and transparency for hospitals. So if the entire public can be out there seeing just how often these hospitals are forcing staff to work in these conditions, they will have no choice but to do something. But, data is only good if you have the information. So we have about 2,000 users right now, which is great. We've only been up for a couple of weeks, but we need more data. And we are about to roll out a new feature, and we are partnering with MedSurf. They are a great company, amazing company. They only allow jobs for travel nurses that are $2,800 a week and up, because they know the value of hard work. And at the same time, you can purchase insurance through them for travel nurses, which is, I know, a huge thing for travel nurses, having, going from different assignments and losing that healthcare in between. So we're partnering with MedSurf, and MedSurf is going to send all their travel nurses to us, and then they're going to help get us some data and catch us up. And they, if you're a travel nurse, there's exciting features on Safe Staff for you, special features where you get to do an exit interview after you leave the facility, so you can really tell us what it was like. All of this is verified information because we have you upload your work badge to prove that you work there. So I really hope it's going to become the national go-to for hospitals and information in hospitals. I truly, truly hope that this is going to be a game changer for hospital transparency for sure.
I love it. And thank you for emphasizing that. Woohoo! And make sure to send us the link so everybody can follow through the app that will change the game, and we make sure to the greater impact of it. I'm just so excited of what's next out of this, and we want to make sure that you are recognized for the work you do, and remember that your impact can go a long way. So, Amber, you remind us that nursing is not just a role we step into, it's a profession that constantly challenges who we are, how we think, and how we show up for others. But as we close out National Nurses Month, your story always reminds us of something deeper, that nurses are not just the backbone of healthcare, they are the heartbeat. And that heartbeat deserves to be protected, supported, and be heard. And through your work as a nurse, educator, and advocate, please help us reshape the narrative by bringing clarity, confidence, and honest conversations back into this profession. Amber, thank you so much for joining us today on Mindful Moments. And to everyone listening in, if this conversation resonated with you, please don't forget to follow, subscribe, and share to Miss Amber's social media and also to Mindful Moments. We are available in YouTube, Spotify, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. And until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of each other. And as we close out National Nurse Month, take a moment to honor the work you do, the resilience you carry, and the lives you touch every single day. Woohoo! Thank you, Miss Amber.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for having me. This was so great. Such a great connection. We're there. We're all on the same page with what we want to see in the future.
Thanks for listening to Mindful Moments with Pedro Morante. Be sure to follow the podcast so you'll never miss an episode. If you find value in our time together, leave a quick review. It helps more people discover the space we're creating. For updates and more reflections, follow us on social media. Until next time, take care.